between the filmmakers and the game makers than perhaps might have been the case in certain situations, and I applaud that trend and hope it becomes the norm. And then it's the other way, of course, too. The traffic goes both ways. We talk about games being based on movies, and but you know, there have been movies now that have been made, as we know, based on games, and some have been successful and some not. I mean, we only have to compare the Lara Croft or the Resident Evil films to Street Fighter 1 and Street Fighter 2, and clearly the crossover, the migration from games to film is still not plain sailing. The case of Super Mario Brothers still lingers heavily over the film industry. So perhaps some games, and I've been hearing this morning about, you know, the fast forwarders and all of that, we have that in our industry as well, but it may be that some games need a stronger narrative focus, and if that were to be the case, certainly there are, you know, writing and get-togethers and initiatives that SPAA, my association, the Australian Writers Guild, I'm sure would be happy to work together to introduce you guys into some of these events that we do on a regular and an annual basis. So I would close and then open it up to questions. And I know I'm the only person here without a PowerPoint, but that's old school. Me, not the PowerPoint. I think in broad strokes, we've got a lot. We have a lot to contribute to each other, and it's events like these that we can think about it. Because when it's all said and done, whether you're a filmmaker or a game developer, we're all storytellers, and the game and the goal that we have is to get, you know, as many folks as possible to pay to see our tales and to play our games. So I think, you know, we have the closest, you know, economy of ideas, the closest colloquy of goal here. So that's really all I have to say. I'm happy to talk to any of you, answer any questions about the film industry. You know, and I may respond by asking some of you, you know, a game question or two, because although the industries are very, very similar, there are some sort of bizarre, arcane things about each other's businesses, I suppose, that, you know, you only ever know when you get in the dark room at 3 in the morning. So, over to you guys.
Can I ask, you said that you were trying to stop the hype.
Can you speak up? I'm sorry, I'm deaf too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You said that you were trying to stop the kind of the outflow of talent from Australia to Hollywood, and that's an issue that we have in the games industry as well.
Yes.
So what are you actually doing to kind of stem that flow from a film production standpoint? Well,
you know, unfortunately, everybody is entitled to, provided they pay the filing fee, is entitled to, you know, obtain an Australian passport. And with the introduction of V Australia and Delta, the opportunity for people to leave Australia and go to the United States or elsewhere is never easier. And I wouldn't put, I'm not a great believer in proscription. I wouldn't put it that, for example, if somebody went to NIDA and graduated from NIDA or graduated from the film school, that they had to do 2 years or 3 years sort of indentured activity here in our industry before they were allowed to, you know, rent a place at Malibu. I wouldn't put that at all. What I think we have to do is to create the framework back here in this country for our significant stars and our significant directors and you know, our post-production people to come back here. And that's a function, hopefully, of, certainly was one of the goals of the producer offset, the new 40% rebate. The theory was, because it's uncapped and the rebate's available to a movie, whether it's, you know, $100 million plus like Australia, or $20 million plus, or all the way down to, you know, $1.5 million-ish, that panoply of work that's going to be available will enable, you know, whomever your flavour of the month actor or director is, and that is happening now. There are projects in the works in Australia that are bringing back some senior players. And it's just unfortunate that the offset's been brought in at a point in time where, you know, the worldwide economy is difficult. The film economy outside of, you know, mainstream theatrical exhibition is tricky. And, you know, the banking industry, which was meant to assist in gap financing some of these projects, is in disarray. But I think, you know, if one believes in the recovery over the next 12-18 months, and provided that the rebate continues, I think part of the success of the offset will be bringing people back. I think we have to give people reason to come back. You can't stop somebody going up to LA and going through the audition seasons and getting on a soap, or why would you? It gives them good experience, and I'm not in favour of that. We have to give people reasons to come back and work, and that means jobs, and that means projects, and that means you know, productions that utilise their skills, test their skills, and enable them to augment and increase their skills.
Just a quick point about the Australian content test.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Australia, Guardians of the Galaxy, Google, Justice League, knowing the ones that failed the test. Did they fail because they didn't feature Australian content, or was it because they weren't initiating and conceived in Australia? Well,
the Justice League Mortal did not pass the test. It didn't succeed because the offset is part of the tax legislation. There's restrictions on the disclosure that actually comes out of the Screen Australia Board, which is the body that adjudicates on the significant Australian content. So we don't get a 4-sentence or a 5-sentence précis of why a project failed. So we only know anecdotally. So what we know anecdotally was that the reason that Justice League, the primary reason, because there are a bunch of tests, but the primary reason that film was failed was because it was not initiated by an Australian. And that seems to be the compelling test. Now, just because you're initiated by an Australian doesn't therefore automatically mean that you will attain significant Australian content. You still have to do a variety of things. You couldn't simply, I couldn't initiate a project here in Australia and then shoot it 100% in Lithuania, post-produce it in Canada with no Australian actors, and it's about, you know, 3 gorillas fighting on an alternate universe. That wouldn't get significant Australian content.
What I'm saying is the themes I'm getting at. So does it have to feature an Australian theme? So could you conceive Australian actors, Australian shot in Australia, everything else? But it's not about Australia. No. So Macbeth, if you were silly enough to want to do a remake of Macbeth,
perhaps prima facie that would work. If you were doing a sci-fi movie and it was set on Mars, or subject to
Pitch Black.
Yes, yes, except that Pitch Black wasn't developed by, Pitch Black developed by Alex Proyas from day one, using that as an example. All other things being equal would qualify. Yes.
So then I can't see why that kind of funding couldn't transition over to games, because games traditionally, as you say, we've been better at aiming towards a more global audience, giving less specific Australian content in our games. Then if that theory holds, then
I don't think there's any reason why that same test couldn't be applied. It would just be a case of whether or not first of all, there was government appetite to do it, and I say that's, you know, the success issue. Have you been too successful? There's the commercial, even though it's not stated in any of the regulations, there's a certain sort of unsaid, unspoken attitude to being too commercial. Hard to believe, but there is. But I think, look, it's about lobby. It's about getting out there. It's about getting to when we spend, not me personally, but SPAA is probably Canberra every second week. You know, we're doing initiatives with the government on both sides of the house, screenings, presentations, pitches to the departments. It's a full-time job. Thank you, everybody. good luck with getting some government funding.